Hello, this is episode 3 of I'm a Secret Roottree. We are in the DLC of the Roottrees. It's going quite well, I would say. I've got a lot of information to investigate, a lot of leads. We've already started painting a little bit of a picture as to the many affairs of Guy Hudson. So we're going to jump right back in while I'm still thinking about all of the information I've collected. Specifically, what I want to do is I want to look up the catering company that Sam Madsen has written in here. So Antonelli's. So we're going to look this up first. There are a large number of Antonelli's restaurants, not because it's a chain, just because it seems to be a common name for Italian restaurants. You may need to use a more local resource if you're going to look for one specific. All right, so that means we're going to look up Business Watch Antonelli's. Butler County Times. Antonelli's is an Italian restaurant, and it's been in the Butler County Times twice. The most recent time was when it closed in 1992. The owner, Rochelle Zimmer. Okay. We are going to do what? So Joanna, hold on. I need to read this. Named Elizabeth. Elizabeth had a daughter who Sam never met, but worked as one of Guy's secretaries. Okay. So a caterer from Antonelli's met her daughter at one of Guy's parties. And they quickly eloped due to a pregnancy. Okay. Probably her. And then this is the child that she had with Guy. And this is the man from the catering company who she then married after eloping. So feel pretty good that this is her. And supposedly a secretary. Yeah. Elizabeth had a daughter who Sam never met, but worked as one of Guy's secretaries. A caterer from a local restaurant met her daughter at one of Guy's parties. They eloped quickly due to a pregnancy. Elizabeth wasn't aware that the party was for swingers. Rumor has it that her daughter showed up with Guy and didn't seem comfortable switching partners. So she probably wasn't down for the, wife swapping shit. Okay. So now let's read this. We have Rochelle Zimmer. We are going to do what? This one. Actually, we'll start a new note and then we'll move it. Where do I move? Yeah, reorder notes. So we're just going to bring this one up to here. Right there. Okay. I'm done reordering. Rochelle Zimmer was the owner of Antonelli's in Butler County. Sold the company in 1992. If I were to guess, she is probably the daughter of the caterer and her mother, Guy's previous secretary. She was unsure if the restaurant would move to a new location or if she would retire. Many years before that, there's a puff piece from Valentine's Day in 1978 that asked recently married residents of Butler County how they met. Christine Garland responded. All right, we're going to do another note. Christine Garland, wife of a Steve, who was a chef at Antonelli's, a chef from Antonelli's, responded to a 1978 Valentine's Day puff piece after recently getting married. Steve used to work extra hours just to be there during her deliveries. Met years ago when she delivered produce from her mother's farm. Okay. So this is Elizabeth's daughter. Christine Garland is the daughter of one of Sam Madson's, I don't remember how she described them, employees, and was the secretary for Guy. Although they grew apart when the restaurant switched suppliers, they reconnected by chance and eloped at the end of last year. Now she has a bun in the oven and they're both working as much as they can. She's a secretary, but went back to delivering produce on the weekends, trying to save up money to move to Boston and open up their own restaurant. Okay. So Christine Garland, it's very likely that Steve Garland is his name then. Because this is after they got married. Okay, so Zimmer is probably, fuck, I guess maybe she married? No. So maybe not Rochelle Zimmer. Rochelle Zimmer might not be a daughter, but we're going to look up her name. Nothing relevant. Let's look up. Rochelle and her husband, Mark Zimmer, have a few mentions in the Butler County Times. Both were local business owners. Rochelle owned Antonelli's, an Italian restaurant, and Mark owned a local bookstore called Bookmarks. Holy fuck. Steve Garland. Steve Garland is Christine Garland's husband. So Mark Zimmer owned a bookstore called Bookmarks, which closed in 1992. 1992 was also when Rochelle sold her business. Rochelle also sold her business in 1992. She was sued, or rather, Mark was sued. Mark was sued by Steve Garland. Okay. Let's look up Steve Garland. Steve Garland is mentioned in a couple of articles. The first was an article about he met his wife Christine when he worked at Antonelli's. The second is from months later in September of 1978, a listing for his weekend cooking classes, Gourmet for the Groovy. Steve had a cooking class called Gourmet for the Groovy. The blurb mentions that he's been giving lessons from his home kitchen for the last month so that he can keep an eye on his son. He had a son. Whether or not the first of his two children is not clear yet. The third was from 1991 and is titled Local Author Sued by Former Butler County Resident. It seems that local author by the name of Mark Zimmer was sued by Garland after Garland saw Zimmer promoting his book Kitchen Tales on television. Okay, so Mark Zimmer wrote a book called Kitchen Tales. His recipe book was partially plagiarized from the recipes that Steve Garland would give his students during his cooking lessons before he moved. The article mentions that although recipes are hard to copyright, Garland accompanied each recipe with a short fiction about how he learned it. These usually doubled as a way to remember certain ingredients. Garland's bean salad, for example, involved making a trade with a gnome for some magic beans. Apparently, these stories were found word for word in Zimmer's cookbook, in addition to additional stories that followed the same format. Okay. Let's look up... Obviously, Kitchen Tales is going to be the smoking gun, but let's look up Gourmet for the Groovy. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Probably nothing. That's fine. Okay. Why don't we just look up... I don't think... Yeah, we already technically have this. So now we need to look up Kitchen Tales. Okay. So, Public Library, Mark Zimmer. Kitchen Tales. No copies. Lisa's garnishing the truth, okay? An entire description of this book, according to the library system, is a recipe book that contains stories. Okay. Let's look up Garnishing the Truth. Garnishing the Truth is a cookbook credited to Garland and Zimmer. It was released in 1994. It was actually quite successful after the duo appeared to promote it on daytime talk show. There have been multiple printings since. According to the book review, the recipes are accompanied by stories that help the reader remember the ingredients. The reviewer says that it seems perfect for learning to cook with the entire family. Okay, so instead of Mark Zimmer, Steve Garland. The instructions of this book is a series of acknowledgements from Steve. The first is, Christine, thank you for everything. Your support means the world to me. You're the apple of my pie. The second is to James and Robert. Steve has 2 children named James and Robert. You're becoming amazing men and incredible chefs. I guess I'm a good teacher. The final is to Mark Zimmer. You proved my storytelling approach to recipes could be popular. Without you, this book couldn't exist. There's also a foreword by Mark Zimmer. I first met Steve in 1978 when he taught a cooking class. The next time I saw him was over a decade later when he was suing me for stealing his recipes. Yes, really. So you might wonder what I'm doing in this introduction. Well, it turns out that Steve and I had more in common than we thought. Instead of settling in court, we settled at McCarran's Brew House over a game of darts. We need to also look up McCarran's Brew House. Over a game of darts, they said they'd give us the first drink of the night free for an entire year from mentioning them. By the end of the game, he and I agreed we'd both rather make a ton of money together than spend a ton of money on lawyers. It's pretty rare to meet your best friend so late in life. But when I decided to retire, I moved to Boston just so we could hang out. So if you're browsing this book in a bookstore, please buy our book. We need more money for when the free beer runs out and the bookstore could probably use the sale. Aw, that's kind of cute. Okay. I don't think this is going to really do anything, but maybe we get a picture. McCarran's Brew House is a pub in Boston. They have a website. Apparently, the bar has been around a long time. On the site, there's a list of famous people who've had a drink there, including former president of the United States, not the Roottrees Company, Kennedy. There's also a few listings of television shows and books that have been mentioned at McCarran's, as well as how they came up. One of them is Garnishing the Truth, which the site has to say about. Local and regular Steve G wrote a book about food. We prefer cocktails, but he gave us a shout out, and we ain't going to say no to free press. So grab a bite at his kids' joint, Fry Die, and then swing by to meet him for a drink. Okay, so Fry Die is a fairly popular restaurant in Boston. They don't have a website, but many locals seem to mention them in various places. One more in-depth review explains that it's not a full restaurant, just a front door and a very small interior with a window. Usually the restaurant only serves vegetables, but a lot of reviews say that in spite of that, it's delicious. You also find a short story which listed on a website called My Boston Homepage. We're on Guy Hudson, and this is like so much about this one branch. But we're going to look up My Boston Homepage. Whoever runs the page seems to just link to random sites related to Boston, tell personal anecdotes related to Boston, give their relatively short opinions on things in Boston. It's very unorganized. There's this to say about Friday. Wicked overrated. I saw in Chef's Signature. So I went there, and there was a huge line. They didn't have a single meat dish. What's even the point? Okay, so My Boston Homepage, probably not going to be anything. Fuck, no, okay. Well, we're getting... Let's look up Chef's Signature, which is going to give us a new periodical. Chef's Signature is a magazine related to food and trendy restaurants. They cover subjects all over the United States. Excellent. Now we're going to go back to Boston Homepage, My Boston Homepage. My Boston Homepage is run with some of the eclectic taste. They claim to rate things on a scale from wicked awful to wicked wicked. The most recent thing to receive a wicked awful was an antique store called Bee's Things. Apparently the owner, Beatrice, is not very friendly. The most recent establishment to receive a wicked wicked is a comic book store in Cambridge called The Million Year Picnic. As far as you can tell, nothing besides Friday seems to be connected to your search in any way. Oh, okay. So Bee's Things isn't going to be relevant, right? I'm going to regret not doing it. Bee's Things is an antique store located in Boston. The owner's name is Beatrice, and the store's name appears to be a somewhat awkward attempt at a bee sting pun. This is supported by what can only be described as a swarm of bee-related imagery and puns on their website. Their logo has a pastel yellow and black stripe theme with clip arts, insects all over it. It mentions that all of Boston is buzzing for bees. There's even a listing for vintage armoire that mentions it has plenty of room for all your yellow jackets. At the bottom, it states, "Fly on down, honey, and make a deal with Beale." Nothing appears to be nothing appears to be relevant. We're also gonna do this because these are cute. Fuck it. The Million Year Picnic is a comic store in Cambridge. It is one of the oldest comic book stores in the United States. You decide to visit, blah, blah, blah. That you heard from a video game, The Roottrees Are Dead by Jeremy Johnston. Fair warning, he has no idea that I did this and will probably be somewhat confused if you're the first person to tell him. Aw, that's cute. Okay, so this is a real place. Wait, if you decide to visit the Million Year Picnic for the first time after playing this game, please tell the owner, Tony, that you heard about his store from the video game. That's so cute. Oh, I'm glad I looked this up. Aw. All right, so we're going to look up Friday in the periodical. We're also going to look up Gourmet for the Groovy. Nothing relevant. All right, so Friday. Chef Signature covered Friday less than a year ago, right around the time you were doing your initial investigation. Each article in Chef Signature tends to focus on a restaurant, and like the magazine's name implies, each restaurant lists the one main dish that the head chef is known for. Friday's signature is the samosa cone. The cover and main article have been added to your evidence. All right, let's look at that. Friday. Can a vegetarian diet be trendy? Sitting Down with the Garlands, the new boys in Boston. Chef Signature, a nationally published magazine targeted towards fans of unusual restaurants, featured James and Robert Garland on the cover of their November 1998 issue. According to the article, the two brothers own a small walk-up window in Boston called Friday, a play on tie-dye shirts that the servers wear, that exclusively serves vegetarian dishes. Most of the offerings are heavily inspired by the powerful spices found in Thai and Indian food. Their signature dish is the samosa cone, which from a distance somewhat resembles a traditional ice cream, complete with waffle pattern. Instead, it contains fried potatoes, pureed peas, carrots. So a samosa. It's a samosa, but it's a... That's interesting. I would eat the fuck out of this, actually. Robert, who's 3 years younger than James. Okay. He looks a little younger, I guess. So let's just quickly put that in. I don't know if this is her, though. I feel like maybe... We have two pictures of her. I wonder if Final Affair isn't that it was the very last one, but instead the longest one that never broke up. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's very possible that the reason why they are inspired to do Thai dishes is because their mother is from Thailand. Let's keep reading. Robert, who is 3 years younger than James, jokes that although the age difference has left him delegated to wear the sous chef jacket his whole life. I'm assuming this. He doesn't mind. As a result, James answers most of the interviewer's questions. James credits his love to his food and his culinary skills to their upbringing. Most kids hate vegetables growing up, but they don't have parents like we did. My father was a chef. My mother grew up on a farm that supplied his restaurant. That's how they met. I don't have any memories from the farm or anything like that, since we moved here before I could even talk, but they told me stories. My dad's a great storyteller. He even wrote a book that partially helped fund Friday. When we moved, they were looking to open their own restaurant together. Unfortunately, they never got off the ground. His line cook gig ended up being less temporary than he hoped, and she had to go back to work as a secretary even after Robert was born. Before we were old enough to go to school, we spent most of our days with my aunt. In the diner where he worked, my dad had no room for experimenting, so he'd exercise his skills at home on his days off. We'd always go shopping and cook as a family on those days, and even though we were hyper kids running around and causing a ruckus, those were some of our family's favorite memories, since we were all together. Mom always had the eye for the best vegetables for him to work with, and she did her best to pass that on to us. According to the article, their parents, who are now retired, visit Friday often. They even have a signature dessert, the Sistine Apple. Apple pie has always been my mom's favorite, and my dad always had this stupid line he used to make her laugh involving apple pie. Most people realize it's a Sistine Chapel pun and assume that's all there is to it. But it's actually secretly named after them, sort of. Okay. So, ugh. Christine Sistine. Chapel. Maybe that's her last name. Sistine Chapel is a pun on Christine and Steve. Oh, wait, no. Sistine Apple. Christine and Steve. Christine Apple. Maybe she has a fruit last name? Okay. We don't have a... Well, no, we probably do have a picture. They're both brown-headed. I just don't know if this is her. Is this actually his what? Or is this her? I feel like this is her. Oh, sorry, that made no fucking sense to anybody. I'm wondering if Joanna... This isn't a picture of... I just think that this might be Zach's secretary. And this isn't actually Joanna. This isn't a picture of Joanna. But I don't know. Are these the same women? They have the same tattoo, and they're dressed somewhat similarly. Well, I don't feel super confident that it's... I guess I'm getting distracted by the Thai food angle. I guess it doesn't really matter. So let me go back into this. So this was Robert and James, right? Robert, who is 3 years younger. So James is this one. And this is, what was their last name? It's in my notes. Garland. And Robert Garland. Not Rover. Robert Garland. Him and him. This is Steve Garland. This is Christine. Let me look at this. Maybe it's Clementine. Is there any other pun names? No. Oh, not Cravensworth. Clementine. Christine Clementine. And we're supposed to do the most recent occupation. What is it that they are doing now? Most people realize, what is it that he'd exercise in his home on his day off? Always had to work with him. Best days to pass it on. Before we were old enough to go to school, we spent most of our days with my aunt. Was her last job working at the farm or being a secretary? Man, I just don't like the idea of this being her, right? I don't know. We don't know anything about her. We could lock in somebody, though. Like, we could unlock or lock in Guy. He was the third president. So this probably isn't her portrait. I really do think that... I really feel like it's her, man. I think this might be Joanne. And this might be the second secretary. But I don't want to lock it in, man. This just strikes me like the fact that she's a little bit older and do we know that that's his first affair? Because we're basing it off of this, right? Where did he find this picture? Some photos, stuffed animal from her childhood, a hairbrush she always used. It's the only one where they were dressed. His mother, Joanna, was Zach Morton's secretary when he retired. 1 or 2 weeks before she quit. Yeah, I'm not feeling confident. She was reluctant to participate. In the swinger shit. We also don't know. It could be that I just feel like this was his secretary. Like, she's in the picture that we have of them. She's the one that's like providing drinks. So I imagine that this is still his secretary before he's retired. Which then means that the picture that he's providing, that 5Ps is providing, is not accurate for whatever reason. If we do... Oh. It didn't lock in because I didn't put in their professions. Lol. Do I actually believe this? That... I just don't think that that's his new secretary. Like, this is a picture of them presumably during, like, the transfer of power. And she would be there with Zach at the time as, like, the first secretary. And he had an affair with her. But why would there be a picture of a completely different woman in this collection of things? It could also be... Well, the problem is that I have 2 pictures of this woman, I think. Because they both have the same hand tattoo. If we look... Here. It's right there. Is this the same arm? So that's her right hand. Also her right hand. And she is wearing the same outfit, isn't she? Can we see her lapel? No. But it is the same arm at the very least. wonder if this is his Australian business partner. And then this is his wife. Well, all right. We're going to switch these pictures back. It didn't lock in. So that means something here is wrong. It could be her profession is wrong. It could be the picture is wrong. I'm not going to... Oh, wait. I didn't put shift for him. Okay. I'm going to switch these back then. It didn't lock in. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. It could be that her name is wrong and that I was wrong about the pun. Christina Clementine, Sistine Apple, though. I feel like that works. My just instinct here is that somehow these are... I don't know, man. Why would she be there in a picture with Zach if this is his new secretary, right? It also is like an older picture. She looks like an older woman. She's not matching the MO that he seems to have for brown-haired women. So I'm just suspicious of this initial depiction. I think if I put in musician here, though, these four are going to lock in, which I could do, because that would likely, you know, give us the next chapter of information. I'm unwilling, I feel, to... This just seems more likely, man. They got divorced. They also got divorced. There's only one picture of her so far, but there's two pictures of her, which is why we've got this. All right. What do we want to do now? Maybe we pursue the Australian angle. Okay. We've done this. We've really done all of this at this point. Yeah, I'm curious about this. The three mementos too. It was the brush. Elizabeth's daughter met with the caterer, eloping soon after due to a pregnancy. This party was for swingers. She came with the guy originally and didn't seem comfortable switching partners. Yeah. No, so this is... We don't need this anymore. We can delete that. All right, let's look up... Let's pursue the Brazil angle. Okay. So, Roottrees Brazil. Roottrees Brazil, sometimes erroneously referred to as Roottrees Brazil, is one of the companies created to manufacture and distribute Roottrees candy. It was developed as part of the Roottrees... Let's do a new page of just Brazil. I'm overbloating Guy Hudson. I'm going to confuse myself. So let's actually move some of this shit. Hold on. Okay. Let's go back to you. Felix Fellows is a confirmed Roottrees. His mother was Joanna, Zach Morton's secretary. Joanna was also married and divorced after she became pregnant. Yeah. This checks out. All right, there was another thing about Brazil, wasn't there? May have been Robin. That's the Australian guy. Thought we wrote something else about Brazil somewhere. Was it... Ruby's legal? No. I think we're good here. I think we can just delete this page. Was there anything else? Right, his mother's memoirs were hairbrush photos and stuffed animal. That's the Rift. Clark, Roottreemania, Anonymom, 6 pieces. First monologue is unrelated. Oh yeah. I could just look up this. See if this is I don't want to get too distracted. Poorly received books. There are very few copies, but it was recently republished by the same company that printed Lauren's diary for schools. It seems they wish to capitalize on Roottreemania. It did not work. I mean, I know that this is a distraction. We're just doing this quickly. Okay, a reprinting of an old book about Elias Roottree. It's blatant corporate propaganda. Are we gonna get his portrait? Yes, we fucking are. Bop. Beep. We got him. Alright, Elias Roottree. We're not going to put in his occupation quite yet. The only one that we're missing now is whoever gave birth most recently. I'm not gonna read this quite yet. We're going back to Brazil. Alright. Let me just write this down really quick before I fuck myself. We looked up Family Man, the Roottree Legacy. It was reprinted by the same publisher as Lauren's Diaries. Something we also might want to look up. Also thinking about it, Clark did mention Lauren declining health. God, we're getting pulled in too many directions. Yeah, so we've got this. Let's look up this. It's blatant corporate propaganda. We're just gonna look at this one more time. All right, great. This is all I needed to write down. We're fine now. Let's go back to Brazil. Wait, I want my notes open. We're gonna put Brazil right under Guy Hudson. Probably under 5 Ps. Yeah, okay. Roottrees Brazil, blah, blah, blah. Roottrees Everywhere Initiative. There is an initiative called Roottrees Everywhere that is related to the Roottrees Brazil manufacturing plant. You do some rough translating and find a significant amount of... unlike some of the other Roottrees Everywhere results, Roottrees Brazil seems to be a success. You do some rough translating and find a significant amount of information about it. Brazil is the only region in which caviar-flavored 5 pieces released at the end of 1978 were a hit. The primary reason that factory still exists to this day is solely to create that flavor, which comes in its own standalone 5 pieces bag with Portuguese writing. A small town named Alvalagos, near the municipality of São Bernardo do Campo, became the location chosen by the Roottrees Candy Company after a newly elected politician named Edson Soares heard that they were planning a new factory and petitioned them in early 1979. Was a local politician from Alva Lagos near Sao. Oop. What? Am I not clicking copy? Copy. Yeah. Who petitioned, spelled that wrong, to open the factory here. The factory was controversial as locals did not want it there. The Roottrees visited Brazil around Christmas. The Roottrees, okay, this is the first note of Christmas. Roottrees visited around Christmas and broke ground. Since then, however, it has been operating relatively smoothly except for 2 incidences. The first was Incendio de Bordo. There have been 2 incidents. In 1982, and a strike, an unsuccessful strike in 1995. 1982 is right around when Guy died. That involved all of the factory workers being replaced. The factory was originally built and run, according to paperwork at the time, by a small company called Nova Corpo. I can't pronounce this correctly, so I'm not going to, because I can't speak Portuguese. And I don't know accents very well. Literally translates to New Brazil Candy Corporation. All right, perfect. The company no longer exists, and not much information has ever existed about it, and the Roottrees now run Roottrees Brazil entirely. Okay. We got some things to work with here. Let us start with the Roottrees Everywhere. Okay. Roottrees Everywhere was an expansion in the late 1970s. It coincided with some large changes at the company and mixed success. As far as you can tell, the different companies related to it were all formed in very different and sometimes haphazard ways. There's minimal organized information about the history of the expansion itself online, but you glean the following. Roottrees candy had been distributed globally to certain markets approved by Elias as early as 1940s. This included places like Canada, Mexico, and select countries in Europe, mostly the UK. Roottrees Everywhere involved Roottrees' expansion to other major markets that were assessed to be ready for Roottrees. This started with 4 that it had no share in: Australia, Brazil, China, and France. Each of the countries had an entirely new company formed, mostly by making deals with local distributors and manufacturers. Okay, so let's do one for each. All right. And in order, it's Australia, Brazil, China, France. Let's take out our Australian stuff. Let's just delete this. Right. Okay. Guy in an affair with the Australian business partner's daughter. Oh, partner's daughter, not husband. Okay. So this might not be what I originally thought. I thought it was a husband and wife pairing, but it's a father and daughter. So it might be more likely that it's this one. And she's someone that we don't know anything about quite yet. But let's go back to Brazil. Okay. Edson Suarez. Edson Suarez was a Brazilian politician. You find a dissertation published by a college student as part of their PhD in history. Focuses on the rise of democracy in Brazil. It seems up until 1988, Brazil was run by the military. The politics during that time were often a hotbed for corruption and nepotism. The paper tells of a few politicians at this time, including Edson Suarez. Edson is a former mayor of Alvalagos, Brazil. Before politics, he was a manager at an automotive manufacturing plant for a major American car company. He was put in charge of Alvalagos by the military government in 1973. As mayor, he used his manufacturing background and knowledge of American business to establish new factories, distribution plants, and other business ventures in the area. This had two side effects. First, he became quite rich. Second, many locals were forcibly relocated. This did not make him a popular mayor. And what the paper speculates was a move to counteract this unpopularity. His wife, Sonia, was discreetly put in charge of a television station called Telerede. He often used this connection to ensure supporters would appear on local television spouting his beliefs and emphasizing his political victories. He had a wife named Sonia who worked on a television station called Telerede. He remained in office until 1988, where he was defeated in the first election after the military government was no longer in control. After this election loss, he quickly left the town behind. It is not known where he has gone, but the dissertation even speculates that he likely fled to stay alive. All right, let's look up Sonia Suarez. There's not seem to be anyone relevant by the name of Sonia Suarez listed anywhere online you can find. However, Spider Search does return a page that lists a news anchor in Brazil named Flavio Suarez, who had a mother named Sonia. Sonia had a child named Flavio. Flavio Suarez is a young Brazilian newscaster with a bit of a cult following. The discourse surrounding him is, to put it in polite terms, lewd. There's a website about something called fan fiction that has a small section dedicated to him. It seems that women, and some men, of a wide variety of ages and writing skill tend to find him worthy of inclusion in their stories. You skim some of the tales there and learn that a common thread is that he's currently dating supermodel named Ashley York. Okay. Is dating a supermodel named Ashley York. Many stories either seem to ignore her existence or get her out of the picture rather quickly. There are also other more traditional fan sites that list some things about him, including his age. He is 18, a Libra, likes grilled steak, and mother's name was Sonia. His name translates to golden-haired. Oh. Now hold on. No. Who did we learn? Didn't we learn something about a woman named Sonia once? He could be related to this whole situation. And is the son a distant relative of Miracle Roottree? Interesting. And that would explain why there is... Oh, car manufacturer. An American car manufacturer. So he might have had an affair with someone related to that industry before he moved to Brazil. I should write that down. So Edson was also, let's go back to the internet. Yeah. Sorry, let me finish this. One website with a signed publicity photo of Flavio seems to confirm this. The photo has been added to your evidence. Okay. Let's go back. He was also a manager at an automotive manufacturing plant for a major American car company. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Now we're gonna do this one. I'm gonna look at the picture in a second. Incendio de Bordo translates to maple fire. In 1982, the factory was deliberately attacked in a clear case of arson. The fire was brought under control after destroying about 2/3 of the production floor, and locals claimed that the air smelled like a mix of burning plastic and maple syrup. The factory was rebuilt and continues production to this day. At the time, it was unknown why this happened, but last year, a news special did list this incident as well as a few others in the small town as backlash to perceived corruption of the government at the time. According to the report, the mayor of the city was found to be receiving a cut of the factory's profits because he is a Roottrie. Is what my guess is. And part of the illegitimate affair of Miracle Roottrie. Did Miracle's tour encompass the world? I can't remember if that was a global thing. All right. Oh my gosh. Let's do... Let's look up the television company now. Telerede is a former television station in Brazil. It came into being in 1970 after a vacuum was created due to the removal of a deficient network at the hands of the Brazilian military dictatorship. Due to a lack of resources in the line, you don't have much to go on about who ran it and when. Okay. Let's look up Ashley York. Ashley York is a British supermodel who does ads for perfume, clothing, and jewelry. She's been the subject of some controversy in the past few months, having been protested by PETA for wearing fur on the cover of some magazines. She's dating a young Brazilian news anchor named Flavia Soares, which has brought them both somewhat into the limelight. So, probably Starlet? I mean, it's defunct, so probably Teen Blast then? Oh, she would be young, right? Hopefully. Ashley York, a British model, appearing on the Teen Blast, wearing a fur shawl 3 months ago. This appearance doesn't lead to any useful information, but another more recent appearance in text only mentions she's dating Flavia Soares. In it, a Teen Blast reporter asks how they met. I was in Rio for Carnival, and he was on one of the parade floats. I had no idea who he was, but I liked what I saw and told my people to invite him to the party I was going to. I felt pretty stupid once I realized that we were going to his party. Well, his mother's party. She runs a media empire down there called Transmissiano Paulo. Okay. So we don't care what she looks like, apparently. Transmissiao Paulo is a massive media group owned and run by a mysterious woman named Sonia Alves. Okay. Sonia... Soares... married and is now named Sonia Alves. She runs this company. It seems Sonia Alves is a common name in Brazil, so she has shortened her name to Nia to stand out in the public's eye. Her shortened name is Nia Alves. According to a history page that's focused on her company and vague, unsearchable details, Nia received a significant inheritance in 1980 and invested it in many different manufacturing businesses in her hometown in Brazil. Okay. She inherited a lot of money in 1980 after presumably the death of a richer family member, like her father. At the same time, she had just begun to learn the ins and outs of running a television network. She continued to work in television until 1988, when Brazil began its period of reform. She felt this was the perfect opportunity to launch her own media company using her investment and connections. Now her own company owns television networks, magazines, newspapers, and advertising firms. After doing some translating, the page about Nia lists her as unmarried. It does not go into any other relationship history. Searching for Nia online, you learn that she stays out of the spotlight. She doesn't appear at shareholder meetings. She sends a proxy. Fuck. So, John Doe. Oh, no, it's this one. She had a son. So it probably is this person, and this is Nia, if I had to guess. So Sonia, but we don't, I guess Suarez. We don't know who this guy's first name is, but we think it's Alves something. And then this, we look at here. To Natasha, kisses from Brazil. Lavia Suarez is a Brazilian news anchor. Oh, wait. His last name is Suarez. This is a signed photo of him sent to a fan you found online. Any other details? Golden haired. I was hoping that he would be blonde. He doesn't seem to be. So, if that's the case, it could be that this is another Guy Hudson affair partner. But there's no indication that they ever met. He's 18 years old. So that means he was born in 1990. Wait, no. He was born in 1980. So he very well could have been Nia or Sonia Alves. If it's 1980, the reason why I was thinking that it could be Miracle is because of the golden haired bit. But it would explain her, the unmarried woman. I know that this won't likely produce anything, but what if we do Nia Alves? Nothing. They're saying that she stays out of the spotlight. She doesn't appear at shareholder meetings. She sends a proxy. Nia Alves owns many forms of media in Brazil under the umbrella Transmissão Paulo. Business Watch has mentioned her by name a few times. The most recent appearance seems to be an article about the struggles of American media companies to do business with their foreign counterparts due to differences in law. Few media groups and countries are discussed, including those in Africa and the Middle East. Transmissão Paulo in Brazil is also discussed. Due to lack of freedom of speech laws in Brazil, there has been added bureaucracy in publishing certain stories on Transmissão Paulo's channels. Nia is extremely private about her identity, and supposedly once used her connections to have a reporter fired from a rival network and blacklisted. All right, that's relevant. Nia had a rival reporter, or rather a reporter from a rival network blacklisted, presumably about her privacy. The journalist claimed that this was to shut down a story that he was doing about her personal life, including that her marriage in 1973 was not her own choice. His research claimed that she essentially had her husband forced upon her as a child bride at the age of 15. It also claims that past appearances with her husband have been for show. They do not live together, and she resents her own parents for the arrangement. The final claim was that she must have made her money under the table through nefarious and possibly illegal means during Brazil's dictatorship, as his research uncovered that she could not possibly have earned enough to start a media company otherwise. After making this statement, the reporter went into hiding for fear of his safety. Fuck. Well then, if she was married, Nia was a child bride. Married in 1973, the age of 15. (1980) is also when she gave birth to her child. Okay. Oh boy. There's just so much, man. Let's do the New Brazil Candy Corporation. Nothing. Let's look up in business. Watch. Nothing. Butler County Times. Of course there wouldn't be. News Time. What if we look up the original spelling? No. I guess we'll look up these two places now. São Bernardo do Campo is a real place in Brazil. A game designer by the name of Jeremy Johnston looked up cities in Brazil that had a lot of manufacturing so they could place a fictional factory there. He did not want to offend any Brazilians with the tale that he was writing that involved corruption and politics, so the small town he named was made up, where the factory was located by mixing two other regions, Interlagos and Alvarenga. Okay. So, hold on. Let me look up Sonia again. Some mother named Sonia. So maybe Alves was her maiden name. So instead it's her maiden name. Her married name. Was originally named Sonia Alves. No relevant results. It seems that Sonia Alves is a fairly common name, of course, but Nia Alves. We don't know anything about another Alves, but we'll likely run into this name at some point. I feel like we didn't get anywhere with this, though. We've got ideas. We also don't... Oh, wait. I see. So Edson was Sonia's husband. The one that she was arranged to marry. And she resented her parents for that. So I think this might be Sonia. And her last name would be Alves instead. And then this is Edison. Oh, he changed his name. Edison Saurus. Nothing relevant. Nothing. Nothing. Maybe he didn't then. Fuck. We don't have another name. We have Edsel. This is kind of curious. Because there isn't an Edson that I can put the name as. Edson Saurus. Oh, nothing. Edson Roottrie. Edison Roottrie. Edison was a manager at an automotive manufacturing plant for a major American car company. I don't know anything about American car companies. But if I had to guess, she's not married to him anymore, is she? Or maybe she is. I don't know. Let me reread some of this about her. Oh, right. Let's look at this too. Her marriage in 1973 was not of her own choice. 15. Past appearances with her husband may show they do not live together. And that she resents her own parents for the arrangement. So it doesn't sound like she's divorced him. Oh, wait. I'm just stupid, man. I was looking up the wrong friggin' names. I guess media mogul. And then this is her son. Where is it? And his name is Flavio Torres. We don't have a picture of her yet. Oh, this is my guess, though. Is that they only had one child. '70s, though. This is 1949. It does track that this could happen because she would be 15 when she gets married, so she'd be quite young. And if that was in 1973, 15 years prior to that is what? 60, so 1958, right? So 1958, though. She was born in 1958. It does not make sense. Well, hold on. So 59, 64. 1964. Maybe she doesn't have a picture. I think I'm gonna get rid of this. It just makes the most sense that it would be him. Unless it's somehow... This just does make the most sense to me. But the timeline looks a little weird, right? This happened in 1949. This would be the firstborn from this affair. This would be the secondborn from this affair. If she has a firstborn child, this could be Flavia. And then they had another child before him. Because I'm under the impression she earned a lot of money. So Edson is the one that gets tapped. Oh, gosh, the timeline, man. Opens the factory in 1979. Was local politician. I feel like this might be it then. Because why would they bring up Libra? He might have a brother. All right, I think I'm going to get rid of this. We don't have enough information to make a strong case for this. Because this guy, I think the timeline doesn't work out if I put Edson here. And I'm under the impression that Edson has basically been relocated for, like... I don't think Sonia is the child of the Roottrees. I think she was married to him. Also, Edison. That would follow the naming conventions here. Miracle Elias Edison. So he's the illegitimate child who's getting paid because he's a Roottree. And then maybe he divorces, and in a settlement, she gets the money, and then she has had 2 children. One of whom we don't know anything about, who also had a child. Which, again, we don't know anything about them yet. Holy fuck. There's a lot happening, man. With just this Brazil stuff. Okay. I can't believe it's been another hour. I haven't locked anybody in the first 3 hours that we've played. Because I've just been gathering information, and there's a fuck ton of it. Way more than it feels like the original game had. And it's a lot more difficult to paint a clear picture. I think what we may need to do is lock in some shit. And I think that's fine with me. I really need to get... I don't know. Maybe I don't quite yet, because I can still do Roottree Australia and see if we can learn some stuff about Robin. But we have, I think, an idea as to this being the Brazilian connection. It could be that when Flavio was born, his hair was more blonde, and that's why he was named that as a child, you know? But then his hair grew darker, because that happens sometimes. Sometimes your hair color changes after you're born initially. Boy. This is the only thing that I've like for sure determined. And I don't even know if this is true. And the only reason why I'm suspicious of this is because of the pictures that we've seen, and it confuses me. Why would there be a picture that he has of this woman when it makes more sense for her to have been the original secretary just by the framing of the fact that she's not a brown-haired woman. It'd be the first affair that Guy Hudson had. She's in the picture with Zachary. Is there anything else that I can figure out? I don't know. I'm spiraling. Well, we will get back to this. Maybe we'll do a little bit. Well, maybe we'll take a little break from Hudson, and we'll go back to Elias. Does he have any tattoos that would be helpful? A lion, dragons, a sun, another dragon. He's got brown eyes. It seems important. All right. Well, we're going to call it here. I'm 15 minutes over my hour. Thank you all so very much for watching. I certainly enjoyed playing, and I hope I see you in the next one. Goodbye.